Hello and welcome to Adult 302, which deals with data organization and analysis. In everything that you do through research, you must be able to organize the data as much as possible and at the same time find major ways of analyzing the data. In this case, all the things that you learned in Adult 301 will have to be applied in this particular course. Before starting this course, I will entreat you to go back to your interview schedules that you conducted, as well as the questionnaire that you conducted. It is based on these that you can really apply the concept of data organization and analysis. In this particular section, we are going to look at what research data constitutes, how to organize data, and how to quantify the data either qualitatively or quantitatively. In this case, we must be able to find out what are the major processes that go with data analysis as well as organization. We are going to have 4 major topics in this section: data organization and management, how to deal with quantitative data, and how to deal with qualitative data as well, and try to find out the differences that exist between these 2 major ways of analyzing data. For data, all data is made up of facts, because it is facts that constitute what we apply in our everyday life. And as we collect these facts must be related to all the things that we have observed and the experiences which we go through, as well as theories that had to be tested. In many instances, data may come in the form of numerical data, descriptive data, or visuals. Data may also be analyzed in terms of its raw nature or through the observations that we make. But in all these, you must know that data comes from different sources. It can be from our field notebooks, it can be from primary data, questionnaires that we administer, audio tapes that we normally have to video, as well as photographs, films, and other responses that we receive from our respondents. In this case, you can't also forget artifacts and other specimens that are either already existing or we try to produce. In organizing data, one of the key things that you have to do is to make sure that you get all the information that you have got from the field. You clean the information by going through to see whether they are appropriate, and also to prepare the data in terms of editing. In this case, you edit the data by weeding out some of the things that you are not likely to use. As we go through this section, you must be able to know that it is always necessary to format the data that you have received. And as you format the data, these must give you the needed information that you require. There are 2 forms of data that are generated. One is quantitative data and one is qualitative data. When we talk of quantitative data, we are interested in looking at data that can be presented in the form of numbers or figures. And so many of the data that we talk of as quantitative data are numbers or figures that we have put together and try to make meaning out of them. For example, if you have males and females, you must be able to put these two major categories into a form that will make you understand basically how they are generated. And so you can decide to give males one code of 1, whilst females have a code of 2. In quantitative research, many of the things that we talk about come from the documents that we receive from the field. And these are basically from questionnaires or major interviews that we use schedules that are normalized. And so once you have these schedules are things or questions that have been structured in such a way that they follow one another. And either these questionnaires are numbered or they are made open-ended. So the two cases that we learned in 301, one being open-ended questions and one being closed questions, both of them can be quantified. Sometimes you also have to apply softwares in analyzing the data. And these softwares practically are designed so that when you input the data can be generated and analyzed systematically and simply. The other form is what we term as qualitative. Qualitative in the sense that we want to find out how the responses that we get from the data can be coded using words. And so in qualitative data, words are the key elements rather than figures. And these words are expressed by the respondents as we gather the information from other interviews, other observations, or other from focus group discussions. And so these three key areas, in-depth interviews, focus group discussion, as well as observations, are the tools that we use in getting the information that we needed to analyze the data qualitatively. And so although sometimes we can quantify few things, the major element is trying to bring descriptions and narratives to our work. Therefore, all the field notes that you get from your observation and the transcripts that you get from unstructured interviews are the major basis through which we deal with qualitative data. These data must be transferred either to a word processing program or any electronic device that you feel can give you the needed analysis that you require. As we deal with data, we must be able to know that this data comes with major, sometimes difficulties. And these difficulties may arise if you don't either record the information properly or we leave certain things to chance. For qualitative data, we have 4 easy steps through which we can manage the data. The first is that you have to choose and follow a clear file naming. It means every person that you are going to analyze his or her data, you must give the person a pseudonym. Then after that, you have to develop a data tracking system. Then you establish document transcription and translation. Then establish quality control procedures. and use a computer as much as possible to analyze the data. So, how do we deal with quantitative data? There are several sources of quantitative data. We have the major source being from questionnaires. And once we get a questionnaire, mostly the questionnaire is closed-ended. It means the variable must have categories attached to them, and the respondents must tick from the categories. Quantitative data, as we said previously, yields numerical data. And as much as possible, once this data is collected, the way we do it is that we have to find out whether our research questions relate to the questions, or what hypothesis are we going to test in order to yield the various numbers. Now, in quantitative data, it is also measured. Now, there are 4 ways through which we can measure quantitative data. In measuring quantitative data, we have the nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. Now, let's look at them one after the other. In terms of nominal level of measurement, we are talking of measurement that involves classifying all the necessary events or variables into categories. And these categories must be distinct, mutually exclusive, and exhaustive. In other words, what we are saying is that each must stand on its own. You cannot have 2 points at the same time. Although sometimes we have what you call multiple responses, in which the person can choose more than one response. But in nominal, we arrange the categories anyhow. So, for example, if you take something like the tribes of Ghana, we can have so many tribes. Any of the tribes can begin. You can start with Ewe, you can start with Dagomba, you can start with Nzima. That doesn't mean the one in which you use to start the measurement is better or of higher magnitude than the other. We are only looking at it from the point of view of arrangement, and the arrangement can be in any sequence. Now, when we talk of mutual exclusivity, we are also mean that each one is independent of the other. And as we look at the systems and the categories, these observations must make you understand that everything must be in order. For example, if you have numbers, the numbers must also stand on its own, and it must not overlap. And if we say it doesn't overlap, it means, for example, if you have 0 to 9, the next category should be 10 up to 19. So you can't repeat the 9. If you repeat the 9 and somebody is supposed to take, he may not be able to know which one to take. Now the next one is what we call ordinal level of measurement. This is ordinal in the term of orderliness. It means you have to order your categories from the lowest to the highest, or from the highest to the lowest. And so if we are using a Likert scale, you can start from strongly agree, up to strongly disagree. And you can also start from strongly disagree up to strongly agree. The only thing is that you can assign numericals to it, or numbers to it. For example, strongly agree 1, agree 2, and disagree 3, and strongly disagree 4, and vice versa. But these arrangements depend on the researcher's own interest. The next is the interval level of measurement. The interval level of measurement is the type that demonstrates the same properties of the ordinal level of measurement, but in this case there must be an arrangement in which there is an equal interval between one category and the other. And the major characteristics are that it includes equal units, it's essentially a quantitative measurement, and allow for differentiation classification as well as incorporating orderliness. These are very important when you are ordering, establishing an interval level of measurement. You must also know that sometimes it has no 0 point, but 0 can be a score. And if 0 can be a score, then it means you can start an interval from 0 when it is a score.